The greatest threat to the church is whatever it is drawing our affections away from Jesus. Period.
Yep.
And that's going to look different to Caitlin's point. That will look different in different places and different communities. But more to the point of what you're addressing here, Phil, whenever we get into the posture of pronouncing what is the greatest threat to the church, it's usually something that the person making the pronouncement doesn't personally struggle with whatsoever. And in that way, our goal is not really, I need to say these things to protect the church. It's I need to say these things in order to elevate my own perception of self-righteousness. And that feeds right into what Jesus talked about in the Sermon on the Mount, where he warned us against calling out the speck in our brother's eye rather than the log in our own. So when somebody gets up there and says, well, transgenderism and sexuality, all these things, that's the greatest threat to the church, what you're not saying is, and I am not in that category, so therefore I am not the greatest threat to the church. Therefore, I am what's right with the church.
Yeah.
Or on the flip side.
That's what I'm saying, Sky.
Right.
I am not a Christian nationalist, so I am not a threat to the church. I am on the good guy team.
Well, and that's exactly, and where you or I or Caitlin may get into that stance of, well, those Christians are the real threat to the church. It's also a way for us of declaring we're not, we're okay. And that's where we have to be really, really careful. And we need to slow down and go, wait a minute, where's the log in my own eye? How am I tempted in the same way that a Christian nationalist might be, is a way of what fear am I trying to mitigate through my own self-righteousness that a Christian nationalist is trying to mitigate through their Christian nationalism. And anyway, this whole pronouncement of what's the greatest threat, I think is just, it's kind of weird because going back to the Old Testament again, like the greatest threat to ancient Israel was never an outside force. It was always the internal estrangement from devotion to Yahweh and their commitment to idols and their fear. And
so
that's
it's
true of the
Christian
church.
nationalism.
It can be, yes. It could also be other things. So that's where we have to be self-reflective.